Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to yet another investor update. I'm your host, Dan Theok, Senior Vice President of Investment Banking here at Mayberry Investments Limited. Joining me today is one of our very own investment advisors, Brandon Thomas. Welcome, Brandon.
Thanks, Dan.
Today, we'll be bringing you brief but insightful presentations on two publicly traded companies, both in the tourism space, Express Catering Limited and Dolphin Cove. So that should be exciting. Be sure to stick around to the end of the program where Brandon will be sharing investment tips from our special segment. Before we get started, I take this moment to remind you that if you're looking to expand your portfolio or embark on your very first investment journey, Mayberry can place you on track to financial freedom. Follow us on social media to learn more. Now let's get right into the presentations today on Express Catering Limited and Dolphin Cove. Brandon, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Dan. So we're looking at Dolphin Cove today, and we're seeing where because of COVID-19, they would have taken a steep fall off in their revenues. But obviously, they've been making a nice recovery as tourism has ramped up in over the last 6 months or so. So Dolphin Cove last year in 2021, they would have recorded revenues of 7.64 million USD, compared to 2020 where they only recovered where they only received 4.2 million in revenue. Their net profit was 1.5 million USD, and their earnings per share was 0.0039 cents in USD, and if converted to JMD, that's 60 cents per share. Dolphin Cove is trading at a premium of 36 times, and I believe that is because the investors believe that as tourism ramps up and continues to perform well in the coming months, that their revenues and their profits will increase and catch up to that relatively high PE. We also see where their revenue is split pretty evenly between their attractions and their auxiliary services. That bodes well to the balance that they can create between swimming with the dolphins, between swimming with the sharks and the stingrays versus taking pictures, the food that they sell, and the different craft items that they also sell to the tourists and as well as us as locals. Their net profit margin for last year was just under 20%, which is really good for a company in that space. And their dividend yield for last year was 4.32%. Moving on to the next slide, we see the quarterly profit movement for Dolphin Cove, and you can see where there's a trend where in every fourth quarter they record a loss. That is due to a lot of the management fees that come out at that point in time at the end of the year. However, we do see where the revenues if you look to Q2 and Q3 of last year, they would have recorded revenues that were beating even Q2 and Q3 in 2019, which was a record year for them, and a record year for us as in Jamaica for tourist arrivals. And management did speak to that they had strategies in place to get a number of guests, from the hotels and the cruise ships once they started to come back onto stream, and they have deliberately done certain marketing schemes in order to capture as much of the market as possible. To date, the company has utilized around $1 million US from a credit line of $2 million US that they have from Sagicor, and they've used 200,000 of that, to invest in increasing the capacity for Yaman Park by acquiring 8 brand new buggies and 3 ATVs to meet the demand. So Dolphin Cove is not just about the attractions as it relates to sea animals such as dolphins and sharks, but they do have the Yaman Adventure Park where people can ride ATVs, buggies, etc., etc. Moving on to the next slide, we see the price history, where as at February 10, it went to a high of $29.95. It's now currently trading at about $21.50, and you can see where this stock is coming from $6.80 in January of last year. So this stock has really blown up, especially towards the Q4 of last year, and I do believe that there's more to come as we ramp up into tourism and get back to our normal levels. Now, speaking to that, our tourism is in March of this year, last month, we would have experienced the most arrivals, since COVID has started. In Montego, in the Sangsters Airport alone, we experienced 385,700 arrivals versus last year it was 129,400. That was an increase of 198%. But comparing it to 2019, which was obviously our record year, it is down 21.6%. So that is telling me that tourism is going back in the right direction. Arrivals are coming, tourists are coming, and as we can expect moving forward, that this trend will continue. Moving forward, this trend will continue moving forward into the summer and beyond. Looking forward, Dolphin Cove is looking to expand into St. Lucia and into Turks and Caicos, as well as they have a lease to purchase arrangement with the Hotelier Reserve Investments, where they have a 23-acre property in Hanover, and Reserve will be, once the approvals are given, build a hotel on that property and allow for Dolphin Cove to be the main attraction for that hotel. It will be a family, all-inclusive hotel, so that of course, will bode well for having a built-in client base for Dolphin Cove. We're seeing the return of tourism to 2019 levels of beyond. So I expect really big things for Dolphin Cove, as well as all of the projects that are expected in the tourist space, all the thousands of rooms that are touted to being built over the next couple of years. All of this bodes well, really well for Dolphin Cove. Dan, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. Tourism is going to continue growing. We're not back yet to 2019 levels. As you said, we are still down by about 21%. And I think as the cruise ships in particular come back, I think that's down far greater by 40-50%.
Yes.
Dolphin Cove is definitely going to benefit, particularly from the cruise ships coming through. So great stocks, trading a little bit rich, but I do think they're going to grow into that earnings over the next 6 to 9 months. And then as we see them expand, I think that stock price will move even further. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Next up, guys, continuing with the tourism theme, we want to take a quick look at Express Catering Limited. Now, Express is a 69% subsidiary of Margaritaville Caribbean, was listed in July 2017. And similar to Dolphin Cove, we can definitely see where they've been hammered through the pandemic, really suffered, had a horrible last year. We see here, when we look at the 9 months result, they actually lost $2.44 million in the 9-month period ended February 2021. We see that turning around with sales jumping by 300% to $9.6 million, and ultimately them turning a profit of $364,000. However, this is still far from their peak performance, with $17 million of sales in 2019. Brandon mentioned 2019 being our best year in tourism, and it was the best year in performance for Express Catering as well too. They turned a net profit of approximately $3.7 million. In today's world, that would have translated into an EPS of approximately 35 cents, and using our typical average junior market P of 18 times, you get a stock price of about $6.30. So it would be fairly priced from the perspective of what they did in 2019. Of course, based on the last 9 months, which is a far cry from that, we see the PE of 61 times. So it's trading rich from a historical point of view, but fair from the point of view of what they've done. And I think with the expansion of the Montego Bay Airport, we expect to see sales and profitability growing by 30 to 35% in our opinion. So even at 623, I still think this is a good stock to buy, because we're expecting the expansion and further growth of their business at the Montego Bay Airport, and as we see more tourists coming through that terminal as well too. Next slide shows again the financial performance, and like I said, they got hammered throughout COVID. We saw 4 quarters in a row with negative returns, and then we've seen them returning to positive returns here. I think they're going to have a great summer. Their expansion work should be finished by the end of the year in the Montego Bay Airport, and I think they're going to just have a phenomenal year in 2023. So it's a good time to try to get in on the stock early before we see the earnings jumping, and therefore the stock price moving further. In my own opinion, I think they're going to get to their year ends May. So we think for the May 2023 year, we could see them getting back into the $3.54 million level of profitability, and then really blowing up that business in the following year. So great stock, highly tied to tourism performance. We've got a great management team in the form of Ian Dare. Shout out to Ian. Mike Chimay, and also John Bile sits on that board too. So it's a great management team. They've got a great product, over 28 sports bars and stores in the Sanctus Airport, which is our main terminal for tourists coming in. We see tourism coming back big time, and they're looking to expand as MoBay expands that airport. So you put those three things together, I think this is a great stock to go and get. And in the future, I think the future is bright for both them and Dolphin Cove as we see tourism coming back big time. Brandon, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, Dan. I mean, with ECL, we see where Ian there, the principal, in an article last year, spoke to the reconfiguration and the renovations that they're doing, and how that will allow them to capture 100% of the departing passengers, from Jamaica. Previously, they would have only been able to capture about 70%, and according to 2019 levels, if we're using that as our mark, that would allow them to capture a further 500,000, passengers. Dan, so the future definitely looks bright for ECL moving forward this year. There are new offerings of bento, that large sushi chain, Fresh Ends, which is a healthy, juice bar, as well as that Bob Marley One Love restaurant. We can expect really big things, and I'm sure the tourists and us locals leaving the airport. I don't know about you, Don, but every time I leave, I have to stop to get something to eat. So, we can definitely expect, big things from ECL this year.
Absolutely. My first experience of Starbucks in Jamaica was at the airport, and then Ian knocked heads with Adam, and now we have Starbucks all throughout Jamaica. So it's a great brand, it's a great business. I think they're going to do exceptionally well, and Jamaica is built on tourism. It's here to stay. Great. Okay, great. Moving on to our next segment. Brandon will now share some invaluable investment advice in our special segment.
All right, guys. So my investment tip today is to guard against FOMO. So FOMO, as it's known as the fear of missing out. So your strategy in investments cannot be to pick a stock based on the fact that it is appreciating quickly, in recent times, or that you hear everybody on social media talking about it. With that kind of strategy, it might work, but as the saying goes, if you carry the bucket to the well every day, one day the bottom will drop out. So, you have to start, your strategy with having a certain investment criteria that you base your decisions on, as well as research. Research is a key component in investing and picking the right companies, to grow your finances. Or you can always come to us at Mayberry, and us, here as the experts will help you and guide you through that process. So don't give in to FOMO, guys. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks for that. Very practical insights. I started my journey 4.5 years ago here at Mayberry, and I am very impressed by the research team and the wisdom and knowledge here. So when you hear us speaking here, this is not about Dan Theok or Brandon Thomas. It's really about the great research team we have led by Jason and the team. Well, folks, that was short, insightful. I hope you appreciated it. To our viewers, thank you all for being part of today's Investor Update. I'd also like to thank my fellow panelist, Brandon Thomas, for his insights and contribution to today's discussions. Don't miss our Investor Forum, which resumes in the coming weeks. Be sure to follow us on social media to find out who our next special speaker will be. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mayberry Investments Limited. Thank you. Bye-bye. Keep safe.